Welcome and thank you for joining us on this edition of the Constitution, coming to you on the platform of the International Center for Tax Research and Development. Today is a special edition of the program, as was said, to bring you interview bites of some of the episodes that we've covered this quarter in the course of bringing you this program that has to do with issues of political, social and economic concern of the Nigerian state. Before we bring you interview bites of some of the episodes of what we've covered this quarter on the Constitution, courtesy of the International Center for Tax Research and Development, we want to bring you this very special account, so to speak, of a report by Mrs. Morenike Babintin Ashai, the founder and president of the International Center for Tax Research and Development. And you recall that in the course of this program, she's one woman who has been so passionate about building a very strong egalitarian society, for the world and Nigeria in particular. And in this concern, she's going to talk about the need for civilization and, of course, the need for us to be able to keep a very fundamental part of the Constitution, which has to do with human rights and, of course, the protection of human rights and the need for us to be our brother's keeper in a world where we shall live in peace and harmony.
The essence of life is good living. When God started the world, God gave us the 10 Commandments so that we can live in a harmonious and peaceful way amongst ourselves. When countries started on their own, they started formulating constitutions so that could be an instrument that will guide good governance, transparency, peace, coexistence, that is peaceful coexistence amongst ourselves. Today there are so many countries with constitutions that they believe will give them peaceful coexistence. We have found out that living together may not be very easy, but when we put down together an instrument called the Constitution to guide government behavior, citizens' behavior, it goes a long way to assist everyone in ensuring that we live a good life. Killings all over the world, terrorism all over the world, hatred all over the world. These are things indicating that the world is yet to be civilized. If we are civilized, and as citizens of the world, we have no need to hate each other. We have no need to terrorize each other. We have no need to steal the commonwealth of other people. We have no need to destroy other countries so that we can please ourselves. We can all live peacefully and respect each other. Today, it is quite a shame that all over the world, there are so many killings, destruction of lives, destruction of properties, just because of few of us who would like to deny others of peaceful living. This is totally wrong. It is time for all citizens of the world to show that they are civilized. Every one of us, we are all human beings of different colors, and God has not created anyone with white color. We do see white dogs, white cats, lower animals in white color. But the issue of white and black that existed long time ago and is still existing shows that we as citizens of the world are not civilized. We are not leaving behind us those things that lower animals would not even do to themselves. The issue of senator flowers is a thing of concern to the whole world, not the Americans alone. I have heard many Americans who hate the attitude, the behavior that they see against their fellow human beings who are African Americans. It therefore shows that just few people continue this hatred, continuous killings against innocent people who have the right, the fundamental right to life, the world has to stop this. The world was able to stop apartheid in South Africa. The world can also stop the killing of African Americans in the United States of America. It's a thing of concern. It is upsetting, uncivilized that such things are going on in a country that appears to be civilized, in a country who like to tell others what to do. It has to stop. The world must stop this. Irrespective of our color, which nobody has any option because this is of God's nature. We must be able to live together. We must love each other. We must appreciate each other for who we are. And that is the kind of the world that we want to see. And it is in this type of environment that the world can move progressively. We can develop together. We can enjoy the fruits of the world together. We should be mindful of the fact that God created this world so that we need each other to grow. We need each other to exist. That should be why we must coexist peacefully. There is no need for terrorism. There is no need for killing of people. There is no need for you to humiliate, for you to dominate before you can get anything from any country. You should be able to be free to get what you want, peacefully to get what you want in a friendly manner, in a friendly environment. We don't need to kill ourselves. We don't need to hate ourselves. We don't need to intimidate ourselves. We don't need to terrorize ourselves because there's no one country that is an island on its own. So therefore, I'm appealing to the citizens of the world that the time has come. We have to make a positive change. We must love ourselves, irrespective of our color, that we cannot do anything about. And we must ensure that the generations unborn meet a friendly environment.
All right, away from that of what she's just said, we'll now bring you that which we did say that we are going to come up with, bringing you sound bites of what we've done this quarter. That is some of those issues that were treated in the 13th episode of Where We've Come Forth to talk about so many issues of political, social, and economic concern in this regard. This will come shortly. Take us through the understanding of resources, resource control, and the types of natural resources we should be looking at.
When you talk about resource control, with what had been discussed over the years, some people are looking for absolute control of their resources. So each state,
in line with the dictates of fiscal federalism.
Exactly, because the belief is that if we say we are different entities, even though we want to come together, I should have that economic right over the mineral resources in my area. That is those who are looking for absolute control, which means 100%. Some people are looking for a way of participating in, the extraction, the, prospecting of the oil. And those who are saying that they want the middle way out, even if the federal government is going to be, it's not even federal government, even if the government is going to be involved in the prospecting of these mineral resources, we want to have a say, And some people believe that even if they don't have a say, as far as they are concerned, they want a share. So if I have mineral resources on my land and government is going to take 100% or going to have 100%, let me have like 30% or 50% to myself.
Are we looking at it from one angle? Someone said to me here that resource control means that if I am a Bini man, for example, and I go to Kebbi State, so to speak, and finds gold in Kebbi State, the understanding here from what I'm getting is that the resource should belong to me and not the state, okay, or the federal government. I wouldn't know how that, and that all I owe the federal government is to pay taxes and royalties in that concern. I don't know if I'm correct, but the same principle should also apply if a man from Kano comes to Lagos State, you know, or any other state and find any mineral resources of interest, that we understand that he only needs to pay royalties and taxes to the state or the federal government. Does that connect with your own point of argument?
Yes, because even Chief Obafemi Awolowo believed that resources should belong to individuals, not even to government. Because as we are talking about resource control now, even if we say let it move away from the federal government, let it go to central government, let it go to zonal government, we may still have the same problem unless proper provisions are made in the Constitution. The same problem we are having with federal government now, we may also have it in zonal. If the Constitution does not specify that mineral resources belong to the owner of the land, but that doesn't stop government from prospecting, you know, from issue licenses. I would have seen a situation where everybody that owns land that you have mineral resources, you can go and register. There will be a register. And if government has to do anything with your land, you will be called upon, your royalty or the portion. That is the way it's done in some developed countries. And that is the way it should be done here. The way it is here now is as if our government is enslaving us, you know, taking our properties and treating us like, you know, like as if the property belonged to them. And that is not fair. That is what the colonial did with, you know, they drove them out of the country. And now our own people doing the same thing to us.
Our discuss today is on preschool age. We want to take a look at policies of government, constitutional matters concerning this, and of course how this must be attended to the way it should be.
I think we can look at the Constitution.
Yes, yes, the Constitution.
Yes,
what does it? Let's take a look at that.
Under Section 17(3), F and H relates to what government needs to do for children and young ones. Under Section 17(3)(F), it says that children, young persons, and the aged are protected against any exploitation whatsoever and against moral and material neglect. The Constitution is saying what the state must do, how they must direct their policy to ensure that young ones are not exploited and they are not neglected. Also, it says that the evolution and promotion of family life is encouraged, which means that government must ensure that the evolution and promotion of family life is encouraged. And we can do a lot of things by that.
We need to establish that for governments and those in authorities.
We need to establish that the preschool should be in the Constitution. One thing that, when I was doing research, one thing that I observed was that at the time that Nigeria was signing the treaty to become independent, it was accepted that if we want to be part of Commonwealth, we must retain English language.
Yes.
But I'm surprised. We have Tanzania, who is also part of Commonwealth, but they are speaking Swahili. They are teaching their children in Swahili language. At least I was there for 5 years, and that Swahili is something that they retain. So what is wrong with Nigeria? Even in our educational provisions here, there is nothing that established in our Constitution. There is nothing that has established that our language is more important than English language.
Let us look at this perspective of political associations, elections, and the Constitution, the way forward for our great country. I'm starting with you. How do we understand first what political associations are supposed to be, what they should constitute, and what they should represent against what we see today in our political equation in the Nigerian state?
What we have in the country at the moment, I would not say it is. I wouldn't say it's political association. I can say it is political business association, because people who are forming these political associations are in business. They are investing money. They are not interested in the people. They want to go there, just as she said, corner whatever resources we have to themselves, be a dictator. All they are asking us to do is, go in there and vote for us. And the Constitution, needs to help us to get out of these political associations, political business associations syndrome. Because so far we've been having a lot of problems with Boko Haram, that is insecurity. We spend a lot of money on insecurity. We spend 3.5 million on one single person because the government is afraid of that
Exactly. The Shite leader.
3.5 million, that's what the Minister of Information said on feeding him. While we have people who cannot even have one meal a day. So you'll find that our problems are different from that of America. Our problems are different from that of UK. When political association started in UK, it was, the king, Charles IV, and the Catholic priest. So those who are in favor of monarchy, they were there. Those who are not in favor of monarchy, they are there. So you find that they have a cause they were fighting for at that particular period. But what we have in the country now, as political associations, they are working against the Constitution.
Which must be correct.
And because if you look at Section 221 to 229, everything that is supposed to be, reflected in what a political association should be is there. But are we practicing it? We are not. For example, INEC is not totally autonomous. The president hired the chairman of INEC. So you find that someone can still control INEC. There are situations where political parties...
which he would dictate the piper.
Yes, exactly.
Who pays the piper dictates the tune.
For example, we have situations that political parties must declare their assets and liabilities. We are yet to see that in Nigeria. We have situation that is in the Constitution that they must publish their annual reports, showing their income and expenditure, where the money is coming from. If a political party will ask the president to pay nomination fee of
45 million for APC.
45 million for APC. Is it the political association that needs the president or Nigeria? We as Nigerians, we are not selling the ticket. So why should a political party sell the ticket? So that is why I'm saying that they are in business.
Today we're going to look at constitutional provisions. We're also going to look at government policies. We're also going to look at government programs, how all of this connects with employment generation and entrepreneurship, particularly how we can access that assessment to our natural resources.
I believe that if we have a strategy, the strategy should not be for government alone. We have a lot of associations that cater for different industries in Nigeria. We have NASIMA, we have MAN, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. We have even SMEs Asborn, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. We have NASIMA.
You have LASME.
We have NASME.
NASME.
The Association of Small Medium Enterprises.
So where a government is planning for economic growth or development, these people should be the one to actually direct and implement. They should be, because they have to be brought in. They have the resources. They have the know-how.
They have the technocrats,
You know,
the technicalities.
they are
They are the ones that
investing.
will actualize the thing.
They are investing in the economy. So if a government sits down somewhere and you are planning by yourself without bringing in these people,
Yes.
how, you know, it's like a government saying we want to develop this and we are putting everything into your court. They will sit down among themselves, you know, and say this is how best we can achieve it. They will now advise the government, this is what we want you to do, this is what we want you to do. But you find the government will come with vision, is it vision 2010, 2020, 2030, you know. But the people who are going to drive all these visions are left behind. And they are the ones that you even punish instead of you to, you know, bring them closer to you. Just like you have said, you will agree with them. This year we are going to have a free import duty on certain products, and they all go because they want to support the government. Halfway you now say, oh, we don't have enough resources, we are going to cancel it. As a businessman, you have disrupted everything for that year for them, because they also solicit funds from home and abroad. And by the time they have planned that this is where government wants us to go, and they are going there, and maybe another government come, or the same government try to, you know, truncate the whole setup, then you have wasted a lot of resources for those who are supposed to actualize the dream. So it's important for government. It is only in this country, for crying loud, that I know that we don't bring the people who will actualize our dream to play. But people will always want to say it to a listening government.
That's another thing.
That's another thing. Government is not supposed to be bringing out or rolling out plans without the commitment of those who will help the government
execute and implement it.
The plans. What I see is that Nigerians, they say we don't revolt. We do, but we do it quietly. If the government is going right, Nigerians will be going left. They say when the government knows that things are not working, they will revert back to us. We shouldn't do that.
But I want you to take us through your understanding. If we are to look at constitutional provisions, we know we have so many cited here: section 16, section 17, subsection 1D, section 17, subsection 3, section 18, section 19, subsection A and E, 2023 and 24, and so many other places. But let's look at all of these. If we are to look at section 16, so to speak, where we are asking that we have the provisions where we need to improve our economic setting and whatever, but yet we're not taking good advantage of the provisions of the Constitution there. Where are we getting it wrong?
We have so many, like you have said. But what I have noticed under section 16, which is economic order, we have a lot of good provisions there. Government does not, the Constitution does not want any monopoly. The Constitution wants our resources to be harnessed by the government for the good of the people, which is very good provision. And government wants a situation that at least there is enabling, the Constitution wants a situation that there's enabling environment provided by the government, you know, looking at egalitarian society. But is that what we have now? No, we don't have that, which is very unfortunate. And that is why I'm saying that our representatives are not there for us.
I can see you are so passionate about these representatives.
Yeah, because it is their job
to do this,
to ensure that the Constitution is followed by the executive. You know, even the issue, if you look at, there's a section that deals with what legislators should do. That is, before, when we were having the military era, we have what we call major economic roles of government. And the Constitution has given our legislators the right that they should come up with what should be major economic activities. So when we look at exclusive legislative list, the Constitution is not saying that it has to be for the federal government. It's for the government of the Federation. And even looking closely at our Constitution, the Constitution has given legislators the right to proclaim what should be major economic activities that government can go into. And the Constitution says if the legislators fail to do that, then whatever the military government had considered as major economic activity will continue. And that is why I'm saying that our legislators are at fault. Because at this time, it's not that we should be saying we are selling government property.
Our topic still is what we're talking about, employment generation and entrepreneurship, and of course access to natural resources. And we're taking a look at this very holistically from the perspective of the constitutional provisions to all of this concern, to government policies, as how well has government really implemented adequate policies that has really changed and make the difference in making life meaningful and impactful for Nigerians, as we're looking at the fact that in the midst of so many, yet we are still crying foul when we should not be crying foul. It is really something that is worrisome and a thing for concern. We're also looking at government programs. How well is this really helping the situation? Has it better the lot of Nigerians, or we are still where we are? And if we must make the difference, what are the ways out and what are the solutions? On the constitutional issues, we still have some aspect to look at here, that of ethics, and that has to do with
we have two areas now left,
which is
the national ethics. In section 23 of the Constitution, it says that the national ethics shall be discipline, integrity, dignity of labor, social justice, religious tolerance, self-reliance, and patriotism. Discipline. I think we can say we score 0 over 10. Because our government is not even disciplined. You know, if you are a government that is disciplined, you will follow the Constitution to the letter. You are there for security and welfare of the people. And yet, you know, we have issues of disturbances regularly. There was
restiveness in the polity.
Yes. There was a day my driver told me that Abacha once said, if there is any problem in any society and that problem refuses to go, it means government has hand in it. So if you have restlessness in the society, if you have Boko Haram since almost 2001 or 2002 up till now, and you had a governor, a sitting governor, saying that I have pledged them not to make trouble, then something is happening. Then government is not disciplined. Because why should there be some people that you have to pay not to make trouble? You know, so that's one area. Dignity of labor. You'll be shocked the way some foreigners treat Nigerians in their various factories. There was a time we read in the newspaper that some Nigerians were they were infected because of certain things in the environment
of that. Yes, sometimes
yes,
there was a case at Ikorodu,
and we didn't.
The state government, Lagos state government, immediately took action. At that time, it was an Ikorodu incident in the Chinese farm, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, the Lagos state government immediately took swipe action.
It is not the Chinese company alone. There are so many companies that...
the newspaper account you are talking about is what I'm making reference to here. And in most cases it has become of Chinese, where the cheap labor, because of most factory workers, Nigerian there, they have their hands cut, amputated, and nothing is done, and they have to come to safety commissions, and the safety commission needed to react on behalf of the people. So I know of cases like that the state government in Lagos State has been handling. I'm only corroborating your point.
Yes.
There are so
many instances that government and our legislators are not working.
And they have to do all of this for the interest of the people.
When we come to employment, when we are going to talk about employment.
Yeah, Mr.
We will mention how employment in this area, how we can generate employment in this area. We have social justice. Is there social justice in Nigeria? There are so many people in prison today that they have not done anything, and nobody is interested in them. Our legislators are sitting down there. Why can't they go around the prisons, interview people, find out why the
this oversight function, I believe, is supposed
to be in prison for 10 years for
look
things
at
that
issues
they did
like
not
this.
do.
Don't you think so, gentlemen? I think
there's a committee.
part of
There's
these
supposed to be a
committees oversight functions is
It's
part of
only in
this.
Lagos that I've heard that the Chief Justice, will go around and release
And even
people.
members at the Lagos State House of Assembly, House Committee on Judiciary, they do some of this visitation to. Hence, the Chief Justice was able to use his magnanimity to say that to release
people
some
that
people.
were not supposed.
So that this should be this should translate to the higher
that's what we
higher
expect,
level of service.
We know Lagos State has been working, and we hope people will emulate them. Self-reliance and patriotism. I've told you about patriotism. That area is very, very important. All this affect economic development. If you don't have discipline, there's no integrity. You will even sell your country because somebody wants to give you $5 million. All that affects economic development, growth, and sustainability. So, Section 24 deals with duties of the citizen.
That is you and I.
Yes, that area is important. It's an area that we have to start teaching our children right from age 2. Once they can hear and they can talk. Because the Constitution makes provision as to what duties a citizen, like pay your taxes, don't spoil government property.
You create that awareness.
A lot of people will start protest, and they will set ablaze government properties, not knowing that it's not government properties.
It is their own property.
Our properties. The money government would have used to take care of us, they will now use it to replace. So these are things that right from school
they need to create the awareness.
They should be aware.
Advocacy.
So that by the time they grow up to start working, to join the society,
it would have been part of a system.
It would have been part of the system.
Us. Not what we are just doing now
and that is why we can see the gap in our legislators, because many of them have not been brought up with what my duties as a citizen.
What can we really understand? What does it say? And what must we do, and what must we know in all of this ramification in the provision of funding of education?
We have to include in the Constitution how government should fund education, so that government can ensure that it is followed to the letter. That is one. Secondly, I want us to move away from this old practice of funding institutions of education. Let us fund people. Let us give education voucher. Let them be free to go to anywhere they want to go to. Let the school, because the problem we are having in most cases in our educational institutions, especially tertiary institutions, is because government wants to dominate activities there. When in the university, they are going to have maybe 200 students, you see the National Assembly sending almost 500 names to the university. So you find that the universities are not free, because it is the federal government who will want to appoint the VC, isn't it? And they want to control. So government should move away. Let education administrators, let them function. So if you give...
And more so that we have them in abundance.
We have them. So if you give education voucher, students, you are funding...
It's per child, per student, per child.
So schools now, and it is important for government to know
How much does it cost to educate a child in primary school? How much does it cost to educate a child in secondary school? How much does it cost to educate a student in university or technical college or other institutions? And with education, government must now open the doors. You know, once somebody moves out of secondary school, let there be so many routes in the tertiary institution. It doesn't have to be university alone. There's technical colleges, there are professional colleges, there are other colleges. And one thing that is important, because this is something that is causing problem for us. When we continue talking about university, it's important for government to allow schools that are professional schools, maybe School of Engineering, for example. You know, it won't cost so much to set up such School of Engineering.
All right,
and they can now attach that School of Engineering to universities like University of Lagos, you know, other universities. So you find, because there are a lot of our students who cannot enter universities because of space. So it's
the other school create room for that platform.
Yeah, just like they do in England. You see, University of London has so many
schools,
affiliate schools. That can be done here. It won't cost so much money to set up a School of Engineering or College of Medicine or School of Accountancy.
But still factor within the centralized government.
Yeah, you know, the University of London or University of Lagos will examine and then give them certificates. But at least
of certificate.
Then we degrees. But then we will be able to accommodate more.
For today, we'll be taking a look at the violation of the Constitution, and of course, we'll also be looking at corruption, as it were.
In a system where there is constitutional provision, you see, taxation is legislative power. The executive is just carrying out the law. There is a difference between making a law and executing the law. The position of federal government is to execute law, not to make law. And an executive order cannot be turned into law. It's never done. Now, this issue of Executive Order 7, I have it here, you know. Looking at it, I've gone through it, you find that we don't have the foundation to actually implement this Executive Order 7. It's not in consonance. The companies that have agreed at the moment to participate are companies that they can increase the price of their products by 50 kobo, and they will get money to finance this thing. Nigerians will be paying for this road construction, and they will be getting tax credits at the same time, you know. So it's like double tragedy for Nigerians. I am not very happy with the way democracy is being run in this country. First of all, when we talk about violation of the Constitution says that National Assembly shall make laws for the Federation, not for the federal government. But the belief of everybody is that National Assembly is for the federal government, which is wrong.
Okay, will that take your point?
So we need to, that's violation, because what is happening is that the president is doing things that
we must.
The president, the governors, the local government chairman should come together to do, or the Council of States. So the legislators should need to checkmate the executive.
Madam Babintina Shai, we thank you so very much. Always there, and I keep asking where you have the strength, you know, even to do research work. At 70 plus, you are still waxing intellectually strong all the time. It's a challenge to me anyway. That's just my own confession.
You know, I told you that whatever you have the mind, the flair to do, you will always find time, even if there is no time.
That's true. I am challenged with, with you, I see myself challenged every day, and that is a change in my own perception, the way I've done things. The Constitution, as it is, provides the guidelines for governments all over the world to act responsibly, be accountable and transparent. Unfortunately, under Section 6, subsection 6C of the Nigerian Constitution, the citizens have no right to challenge the government if these constitutional responsibilities and provisions are carried out. These and more form the bedrock of the Youth Wing discourse as I take a look at Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Nigerian State in their discourse.
Good day, thank you for joining us once again in this episode of the Constitution organized by the International Center for Tax Research and Development. Today the topic is the non-justiciability of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I, Dusuma Wola Mubarak, shall examine this topic from the political perspective. Lawrence shall examine it from the economic perspective, and Ikpinu Adeademilowa shall examine it from the social perspective. Of course, we shall start with Lawrence. Lawrence, what do you think about the non-justiciability?
Okay, so first of all, looking at it from the economic implications of what currently stands, right? So we, as a country, we need, foreign direct investments, and like you said, it's conflicting, like it's practiced in international standards, but here at home, it's something you cannot, counter with. But if you need foreign direct investments in this country, people are going to come with best global practices, meaning that these provisions are meant to be, instituted by the, country's enforcement agencies, exactly. But when you don't have them, you chase away, people who want to invest in your country, because when they know that we can't hold the government accountable to providing those rights that they've provided for, in the provisions, we think that we'll chase them away, and that, in a sense, is going to hurt us economically in ways you can't even imagine. When citizens can't even hold their governments, accountable by trying to contest, their failures, in court of law. Exactly. Yeah. So those are like the economic impacts you could examine, in the long run, and those impacts in itself is very harmful to both its citizens and the government as a whole.
I really agree with what Lawrence has said, because in fact and indeed, these socio-economic rights are basic requirements of human rights and human dignity. So if international companies and corporations do not expect the best standards to apply in this country, then they will not be inclined to, in fact, come to the country
and invest. That's just what you're going to have in the long run.
So it's like leading to a whole deficit in potential investments from international community.
From international community, yes, and even looking at it locally, the government is supposed to provide those rights, and ensure that whatever means necessary, they are going to ensure that those environments are ready and available for people to come, and invest economically, both from the international scene and then locally. So now imagine if there is no form of accountability on our own side, because that is our only hope, right? To the extent that where government has failed to provide the necessary, environment, and we can't hold those guys accountable, it doesn't just affect us internationally, but also locally. Exactly, because if the environment exists, both international and local businesses will thrive. So if you say there is a right to standard of living and the government is not saying anything or trying to do anything possible to make sure that people can come both at the international level to invest in real estate and at the national level to invest in real estate, and we can't even contest those things in the long run, we think it would harm us.
Yeah. What do you think, Ifeanyi?
The thing is, if you examine the social considerations for why these Chapter 2 rights should be made justiciable, what you'd find is that even at the international climate, with modern development, with constitutions like that of Nigeria, that of Uganda, and even the African Charter, which has been incorporated as a law into Nigeria, socioeconomic rights are no more divided from civil and political rights. They are given the same fundamental respect that is regarded to civil and political rights, which in the Nigerian context are the rights contained in Chapter 4 of the Constitution. So that shows that there is no reason in this modern era why a particular set of rights should be made justiciable and another made non-justiciable. And even when you look at the responsibility that is imputed on the government by Chapter 2 of the rights, which basically represents the principles that direct the government in formulating policy, we would see that the government has failed to fulfill its obligations as envisioned by those who drafted the Constitution. So you'd find that in item 60A of the exclusive legislative list, the federal legislature is given the power to create statutory bodies and regulate them to fulfill the rights contained in Chapter 2. But in the Nigerian context, we do not see this. Same as even in the oath, which a person who is to exercise executive or legislative power swears by when being inducted into office, it clearly states there that he or she shall ensure that these rights are fulfilled and these rights are made progressive. So you'd find that the non-justiciability of these rights has really affected the Nigerian government and the people as a whole, because by making these rights non-justiciable, the government does not feel an obligation to carry out the fulfillment of these rights, which violates its state responsibility under the same constitution, and same as under the international climate, since Nigeria is a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICSER, which state that there must be a progressive realization of these rights, and it does not allow the government to take a step back. Now, the effect of all of these on the citizens is that you end up with marginalization and regression, where the government is not carrying out policies, and the people, because the government is not carrying out policies for the progressive realization of the people's rights, the people become marginalized, and these are people who do not have access to political structures. So you find an economy that is not developing, you find a judiciary that cannot intervene or even check the executive. And if you look to places like India, in the Minerva Mills case, you see that the court has stated that the judiciary should apply the directive principles in interpreting the constitution. Even same as in India, the socioeconomic rights are non-justiciable. Same as in South Africa, where the socioeconomic rights are actually justiciable. The court seems to apply a test of reasonableness, which shows that making this right justiciable is not going to harm the government. Rather, it allows the judiciary to make sure that the government is making do with the progressive realization of these rights in cooperation with the available resources with it. So, flatly, the non-justiciability of these rights has affected Nigerian climate, has affected Nigerian people, and making it justiciable would cause the government to sit up. And in this modern era, there's no reason why the government should not do that.
I think I really, really agree with you. Like, for real, these rights are in fact indivisible. There's really no reason to distinguish civil and political rights from socioeconomic rights. And making these rights justiciable, apparently, as already explained in the Indian case, did not worsen the situation for the government. It did not create an unnecessary burden for them. Rather, it's brought up a need for them to sit up and achieve utility for the general populace and their citizens.
Exactly.
Right? So do you have any comments on the social perspective, Lawrence?
No, he has actually said everything. No, the point being that there is not going to be anything negative from the government actually making this justiciable. Rather, there's going to be like a progressive certain kind of improvements, because what you now do is to ensure that you make sure that you do those things that you're supposed to do as a government to your people, and in the long run you have a progressive society. So
precisely,
this is win-win.
Honestly, this is exactly why we on the political side also feel there's every political reason why these rights should be made justiciable. For instance, socioeconomic rights, as been already pointed out, have been made available under various international treaties and charters that Nigeria is a party to. This means definitely that you can take the Nigerian government to the international courts for failure to carry out activities that would promote and protect these socioeconomic rights. So there's really no point in preventing people from taking the government to court within our own local courts here for failure to carry out the socio-economic rights. There is this disparity in that you can take the Nigerian government to the international court for failure to carry out socio-economic rights, but you cannot take them to the Nigerian court for failure to carry out the rights contained in Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution. So from a political perspective, understanding the economic implications of failure to make these rights justiciable and the social implications of dividing political rights for civil and political rights from socio-economic rights, we feel it makes political sense to make these rights justiciable, especially in light of the fact there have been many agitations for a need to amend the Constitution to meet emerging and modern realities. See, it's not just enough for us to go the way of India and apply a reasonableness test. We feel, in fact, we should make it a part of our Constitution, because the Constitution is a very symbolic document. We believe that if the government and the people can see for themselves that these rights are a part of our basic law and they are enforceable in our own courts, when the government fails to carry out activities that will protect and promote these rights, then people will be more inclined to take these rights serious. I mean, it's quite sad the way our economic, social, and political life is just going down the drain, like in recent years.
Sure.
So basically, that's what we on the political side think. Do you guys have any additions you'd like to make from your own various perspectives?
I think the constitutional amendment is very important, like you said. Aside from the fact that it affects the people as a whole, I mean, even the judiciary, because the non-justiciability of these rights is rendered by Section 6, Sub 6C. And there's a disparity between that section and Sub A and B, which come before it. Because after you vest the judiciary powers with judicial powers, you then add an ouster clause at the end limiting those powers, which does not make sense in a democracy where there should be separation of powers. More so, it does not allow the government to feel, and I mean the Nigerian government in present day doesn't seem to show strong concern for the Nigerian people. So if you remove the ouster clause, they can basically just sit back and not do anything. And like you earlier mentioned, I like the point you mentioned about the international level. So what you find is that if the country has shown that they are willing to submit to these obligations at the international level,
community,
then why can't we do this domestically?
At the local level too.
So a constitutional amendment, I feel at this point, is very important, very necessary. If our African counterparts like Uganda and South Africa can do it, then I don't see why Nigeria cannot.
Precisely. How about you, Lawrence? What do you think?
Like he said, he doesn't see why other people can't do it, but I think it's actually an irresponsible government that would, have that kind of disparity exist, and I wouldn't say they don't know about it. I just think it gives them, cuts them some slack from being accountable to the people, because if you align yourself with international treaties that ensure that this can happen in the international level, why not national level? It all boils down to how accountable your government wants to be to its people. And I wouldn't say that they haven't seen the massive potential that this could actually provide for its citizens, in the area of economic possibilities. Like I said, you need to make the ground available for investment. You need to make, the society acceptable and encouraging to people who want to put their money in the country, both at the national level and at the international level. So I just think it cuts them some slack if they don't want to make this justiciable, in the long run. That's just it. It's an irresponsible government.
So on grounds of accountability and on grounds of utility, we suggest that these constitutional amendments be done as soon as possible, and the provisions of Chapter 2 should be made justiciable. And, of course, Section 6 of Section 6C that removes justiciability of this chapter should also be clearly removed. On this note, we thank you very much for joining us. Again, my name is Dusumu Agola Mubarak. He is
Lawrence Ebusi.
And the other is
Winoluwa Ademiluwa.
Thank you once again for joining us. See you next week.
No love is all we